all. Today here we are going to discuss what is a JavaScript. Basically JavaScript is a scripting language which we used in the web development. As it is a scripting language, it will have its own advantage with the help of which we can add much more thing to the web page. Before understanding a JavaScript, here we should have some knowledge regarding HTML and CSS so that we can create a web page. As we all know that when we have created any web page with the help of HTML and CSS, the web page is static. Static web page is a web page which will not give any response to the user generated activities on the web page. As the web page is static and not giving any response to the user generated activity, the user is not finding this web page interactive. So we want to create a dynamic web page. Dynamic web page is a web page which will give a response to the user generated activities on the web page. For example, if the user is going to click on the button, we can show some action. If the user is going to select some text, then here we are going to change the background color. If user is doing any activity on the browser, then here we are going to give a response for that. So this is called as a dynamic web page, and such kind of dynamic web page is created with the help of JavaScript. Basically it is a very old scripting language that we are having. It has came into an existence in 1994. Basically we use a JavaScript for creating a dynamic web page, and we execute a JavaScript at the client side. There are various other things that we can also do with the help of JavaScript. We can also do a form validation with the help of JavaScript. Form validation is the process in which we are going to validate the form. In the HTML, we are using a form because we want to take a user input. But with the help of JavaScript, we can validate that. Whatever the data that user is giving me with the help of that form, we can check that data, we can validate that data at the client side with the help of JavaScript. For this, we can take a simple example in which consider that we have created one form. On that form, we are having a first name field, and user is giving me a numerical data in the first name field. Then obviously here this is not the correct input. So we will not accept this correct input. We will give proper message to the user that give a data in the character format only. Once again we will take a data from the user, and then only will send that data to the server. So the JavaScript plays a very important role in the form validation. After that, here in the JavaScript we can also handle the actions, and they are called as an events. In simple words, we can say that events are nothing but the actions that user is doing on the web page, and we can give response to that event, we can give a response to that action. For that purpose, in the JavaScript we are having lots of predefined events. For example, on click, on blur, on focus, and we will have a lots of event like this. In the JavaScript, we are also having a lots of concepts which we can use similarly as we are using in the object oriented programming language. So the main intention of the web page for becoming a dynamic, the JavaScript will help us a lot. Here we need to understand that JavaScript is a single threaded language, and here we can also perform the asynchronous programming. This facility that JavaScript is giving us is very important. Whenever we are working with the asynchronous programming, it is useful for us to fetch a data from the server, and we can show that data to the user. So for that purpose, JavaScript is internally using a callback functions, promises, and async and await. There is one more thing. that we need to understand in the JavaScript, that JavaScript is interpreted language. The code will get executed line by line. So here we are going to take an example in which we will understand how to do a form validation in the JavaScript. In that, first of all, I will show you the output, and then here we are going to create a code for the same. Okay. So as you can see here, I am showing one form on my screen. In this form, I am having a fields like I am having a name, email, password, age, mobile number, gender, hobby, city and checkbox. At the last here, I am having a submit form. Now at the first attempt here, without filling this form, if I try to submit a form, it is giving me a message that is nothing but name cannot be blank. Basically, this is called as a form validation. Okay, so if I am giving any valid name here and if I try to proceed, then whatever the fields which are compulsory in that form, it will ask me to fill that field, and then only we can proceed for submitting a data to the server. So first of all, here we will create this HTML form. For creating the HTML form, here I am going to use a VS Code as an editor, but you can use any other editor with which you are comfortable. Okay, so here I am going to create a new HTML file. As we all know that here HTML file will have the .html file extension. Here I am selecting a file location where I want to save this file. You can save your HTML file at any location. Here I am adding a name to my file and the file extension. As it is a HTML5 file, it will start with the doc type HTML. Here I am creating a basic structure of my HTML page. HTML file always starts with the HTML. In the HTML file, we are having two sections, that is nothing but we are having head section in which I am going to write a title tag. With the help of this title tag, I can give a title for my tab. Now here I will proceed for the next section of my web page, and that is nothing but here I will have my body section. As we want to create the form, here in the HTML we are having a form tag. In this form, first of all, I am going to add a name field, and for that purpose here I am taking the help of input type text. Sorry. Now here I will execute this page. As you can see here, this is the first field that I am having. And now for this field here, I want to write the form validation. So here, first of all, I want to do a form validation after submitting the form. So here, first of all, I will create the submit button, and that is possible with the help of input type submit. So here I have created a submit button. Now when the user will submit the form, here I am going to handle the on submit event, and on this on submit event I am going to write a user defined function. So here I am giving a name of my function, that is nothing but validate data. And to this object here, to this function here, I am going to pass the object, and that is nothing but event. After that here, for this form also I am giving a name, and the name of my form will be form1, so that I can access this form. Now I want to define this function in the JavaScript. So here inside the head section I am going to write the script tag. I want to define the function, so here I am going to use a function keyword, and here I am going to write the name of my function. My function is taking the event as a predefined object. Inside this function, first of all, I am going to write event dot prevent default. Prevent default, it is a predefined function which will prevent a form from submitting this data to the server. Why I am writing this code? Because before submitting this data to the server, I want to validate a code, I want to validate a data. So I am asking this form for preventing or from sending this data to the server. So first of all, here I will access a data from the text field and I will store that data into the variable. For that purpose, here I am going to write a document. Then here I am going to write a getElementById method. But this method will take the name of the ID of that input type. So first of all, I will identify this input type with the help of this ID. Now here we are going to write getElementById method, inside which here I am passing this ID. I want to access the value from this field, so here I am using a value as a property. The data that is coming from this input field, I am storing that data into this fname variable. Here this is a name of the ID and this is the name of the variable. Both can be same or both can be different. Now here first of all, I will check that whether there is any value in that variable or not. It means that here user has given us a first name or not. So here I am going to write if, and then here we are going to check fname is equal to blank. If this condition is true, after that here I am going to show a message to the user, and that is nothing but name cannot be blank. Here I am going to write a return false. With the help of return false, here the control will come out of that block, so that unnecessarily we will not execute the rest of code. Now if the user has given us the first name, then we will compare that first name with the valid data. So what is a valid data? That we have to define, and that is possible with the help of a regular expression, and that is nothing but a pattern. In the pattern, we are going to write a code that is accepted as a valid input. Okay, so here I am going to add a regular expression. So to write the regular expression or a pattern, here first of all we have to give a slash. As this pattern is related for string, it will start with the cap. In the square bracket, here we have to write down the data that is accepted. So here we are going to write down capital A to Z, which is accepted as a valid character, small a to Z, this is also we are going to accept, and after that here we have to provide the curly bracket. Inside the curly bracket we will give two numbers. First one will be the minimum range and second one will be the maximum range. So if I want to have any valid name in the real world, it will have at least two characters. For example, Om, then I am having at least two valid characters, that is nothing but O and Om. So here M. So here the minimum character that the first name should have is nothing but a 2, and then maximum character that I am going to allow is nothing but a 15. These numbers, okay, that is a minimum range and maximum range, can change, they are not fixed, and whatever is the valid data that we are going to write it here, it can also be changed. As it is a string regular expression, it will terminate with the dollar. Pattern for the string, start always with the cap and it will always end with the dollar. Now I am going to store this regular expression in one of the variable. Now as you can observe here, in this variable I am having a user input. In this second variable I am having a accepted input and I need to compare that. Then here I am going to take the help of test function, which is a predefined function. So here we are going to write if a data that we are having in the P1, we are going to write a test, we are going to compare it with the f name, and if it is not matching, okay, at that time only here I am going to give a message that provide valid name. These messages, they are also not predefined. You can change these messages according to your requirement. And then here, as I want to have the control out of this curly bracket, here I am going to write a return false. Now we will test this code. So here again we will go back to our web page. We will refresh the web page so that we can get the latest result. If for this first name I am not going to enter any data, I am going to keep this name as a blank, and then if I try to submit it, as you can observe here, I am having here a message name cannot be blank. Now here if I am giving any numerical data and if I try to submit the form, again it is giving me please have a valid name. Okay, so here I will change this message little bit, please provide valid name. Okay, this is called as a form validation. Okay, now here in this form we are going to add the fields one by one. So after the name here we are going to add a email field. Okay, so here first of all in my form I will add the email field. So for that purpose I am going to use the input type email, and then here we are going to follow the same process. Again we will take a data from the text field into the variable. We are going to write the regular expression, we are going to compare the data, and we are going to show the result. Okay, so here I am writing a document which is my root node. With the help of this get element by id, I am going to access this ename field. I want to access a value here. So here I am taking the help of value property which is predefined, and then here I am going to store that data into this variable. After that here I am going to write a regular expression which will validate our email field. As here I want to write a regular expression, first of all here I will write a slash. In between here I will start a regular expression. As it is based for the email, I will give a cap. In the square bracket here we have to write down a data which is accepted as a valid data. So here I am going to write small a to z. We are going to write 0 to 9. We are going to accept a dot. We are going to accept the underscore. So these are the things which we are going to accept as a valid email. Okay, and then here I am going to provide the range for that. Again here you can change this range. Suppose the minimum range is 5, and then here we can give a maximum range, that is nothing but a 15. After that here if I want to do a concatenation in the pattern, then I have to provide a plus sign. In the email ID, as we all know that here @ has to be there. So here we are going to write the @, and after the @ we are going to have our domain name. In that domain name, once again we can accept capital A to Z, we can accept small a to Z, we can accept 0 to 9, and then here we can accept a dot. Okay, So these are the things that we can accept in the domain name, and then here I will provide the range for the same. For example, here if I am going to write a minimum range is 5, and then here I have to give a maximum range, that is nothing but I am going to write a 15. Okay. After that, here in my email ID I should have a dot, and then here I have to provide the range for the same, that is nothing but here I can write .com or I can have .co.in. So here I am going to accept capital A to Z, or here I can have small a to Z, and here I will provide the range. Okay. Suppose here minimum range is 2, and here we can give a maximum range, that is nothing but 4. As it is a regular expression for the email ID and which is a string based, here we are going to terminate it with the help of $. Okay. And now I am going to store this regular expression into another variable. What we are going to do, again here, first of all we will check that whether user has given us the email ID or not. So here I am going to write if this ename field that we are having, if it is blank, then here I am going to show a message to the user in which here I am going to write the alert, and here I am going to write email cannot be blanked. Again here we are going to add the return false, and now all we know that why we are writing a return false. After that, here we are going to check that the P2 that we are having, we are going to test that with our ename. If it is not matching, then here we are going to show the message to the user, please provide valid email ID, and here we are going to write return false. Okay. As here you can observe, we have taken a data from the email ID into the respective variable. We have added this regular expression, and we have stored this regular expression into P2 variable. Here I am checking that if the ename is blank, okay, then here we are going to give a message to the user, email cannot be blank. At the same time, here I am going to compare this pattern with our ename field. If that regular expression is not matching with my data, then here I am going to give a message to the user, that is nothing but invalid email. Okay. So as you can observe here if I am going to fill this form blank, if I am not going to give any data and try to submit the form, it is asking me to enter the name. If without filling this email ID, if I try to submit the email, it is giving me a message, email cannot be blank. And then here if I am going to add the invalid email ID, and if I try to submit the form, it is going to give us the message. This is how here we can add a validation for the email. Then here we are going to add a mobile field form in our form. So here we are having mobile number. As it is a mobile number, here we will have a number as an input type. After that, here I am going to change the ID, and that is nothing but mname. So again here I am going to access a data from this field. So I am going to write document dot get element by ID. Here I am going to give the ID, that is nothing but mname, and then here we are going to add a value as an attribute. And now here I am storing that value into the variable. Now we are going to write down the regular expression for the mobile number. Okay, as we all know that mobile number is nothing but the collection of numbers in which I will have minimum 10 digit and maximum 10 digit. Okay, so here we are going to add the regular expression. As this regular expression is not for the string, we are not going to add the cap. Here directly I am going to give the range for the valid number, that is nothing but here in the mobile number I am going to accept a 0 to 9, as well as here we will have minimum range 10 and maximum range 10. Okay, for the time being, okay, I am keeping this all the pattern very easy so that we can learn. Okay, as this is a pattern which is for a number, we are not going to terminate it with the help of dollar. And here we are going to store this regular expression and pattern into the variable, that is nothing but P3. Now here we are again going to check the same condition, that if the mobile number field, if it is blank, I am going to give a message to the user that mobile number field cannot be blank. At the same time here I am going to check whether this pattern which we are having in the P3, if it is going to be matched with the M name. Okay, and if it is not matching, then here we are going to give a message to the user, invalid mobile number. Okay, so here again we will refresh the web page. Okay, here we are going to add the name, we are going to add the email ID. If I am going to keep this mobile number as in a blank and try to submit it, it is going to give me a message, mobile number field cannot be blank. If here I am giving a mobile number which is not as per our expectation also, then and then only it is going to give me a message, invalid mobile number. After that here we are going to add a field, that is nothing but age. So here as age will have the input type number, as well as here I am going to give the ID for this field. Now here first of all we are going to store a data from this field into the respective variable. Okay, now here for the name, for the age, there is no need to write a regular expression. Here I am going to accept a minimum age which is 18 and a maximum age as 100. So here there is no need to write a regular expression. Directly here I am going to write the if statement. Okay, and then here what I am going to do, here this variable that we are having, it has to be greater than or equal to 18. At the same time here this variable value should be less than or equal to 100. If this condition is true, then and then only here I am going to give a message to the user, that is nothing but valid age. Okay, if any one of the condition is not getting matched, then here we are going to give a message to the user, that is nothing but invalid age. So if the age is less than or equal to 18, or if the age is greater than or equal to 100, then here we are going to give a message to the user, that is nothing but invalid age. Okay, so here if I refresh the web page, we are going to fill this form. And if I am going to keep this age field blank, then here I am going to get a message invalid age. Okay, if here I am going to give a value that is nothing but mine, suppose here if I am going to give a value 16, I am going to get a message invalid age. Here if I am going to write a age which is above 100, here I will get a message invalid age. Okay, so this is how here we are going to validate our age field. After that, here we are going to add radio buttons in our form, and we are going to check at least one radio button is checked by the user or not. So inside my form, here I am going to write a gender, I am going to write a radio. Here I will have a name, that is nothing but I will have a gender. Here I have to write the value attribute because user is not going to type the text, but user is going to enter, the user is going to select the option. So here I am going to write a main, and then here we can have a value. As you can observe, here I have added my first radio button. Okay, in the same fashion here I will add my second radio button. So here I will have my second radio button, and that is nothing but female. Okay, so here we have to check that at least one radio button is checked by the user or not. Here if you observe, in this field user is actually typing a data, so we are writing a regular expression, but here onwards user is not going to enter a data, but user is going to select the option. So there is no need to write a pattern, but here we have to add some other logic in which we are going to check that at least one radio button is checked by the user or not. Okay, so here we are going to check that this is our document, that is nothing but our root node. On that document I am having a form, the name of my form is form 1. Okay, on that form here I am going to have a gender as our name of the radio button. As radio button is considered internally as a radio button, here a radio button means array. Here I am going to access a 0th index. I am going to check that whether it is checked or not. Okay, and so as it is not, here I will add this, and our second checkbox is also not checked. Then here I am going to give a message to the user that please select at least one radio button. Okay, and now here we will check this. Okay, so here and if I try to submit the form, it is asking me please select at least one radio button. Okay, now here as we have added the radio button, here we will also add a checkbox. So here I am going to ask a hobbies of the user. So here we are going to write input type checkbox. Here I am going to give a name, that is nothing but here I will add the hobby. Here I would add a value. and that is nothing but suppose we like to read. So here I am adding reading. Okay. So this is how here I have added my first checkbox. Okay, and now here we will add at least 2 checkboxes. So here we can write, we also like to play, so here we will add playing, and we also like to code, so here we will have a coding. Okay. Now, the main difference between the radio button and checkbox is that in case of radio button, we can select only one value. But in case of checkbox, I can select one value, I can select more than one value, and I can select all the values. Okay. So here what we are going to do, here we cannot write a logic like this. As we all know that here checkbox and radio button internally they considered as an array. So first of all we'll iterate this array with the help of for loop. Okay. So here I am going to write for this I should be less than, we are going to have a form. On that here we are going to have the array. The name of my array is hobby, and then here we want to iterate till the last index. So here we are going to write a length property, and then here we are going to write I plus plus. So here while iterating this array, if the user has not checked the checkbox, I am going to increment the value of the counter variable. Okay. So here I am going to check if here this is our hobby array. We are going to access a 0, we are going to access the index with the help of I dot checked. Okay. If it is equal to false, it means that user has not selected, okay, that checkbox. Then here we are going to increment the value of the counter variable. So here the counter variable will have a 0 value, and here I am going to increment my counter variable. Okay. Now if the value of this counter variable and the length of the array is the same, it means that user has not selected any checkbox, and we will ask user to select at least one checkbox. So here we are going to check the value of this counter variable is equal to this is my hobby array, and here I am going to calculate the length. If it is same, if this condition is going to true, then here we are going to give a message to the user that please select at least one checkbox. And then here we are going to write return false. Okay. So here I will refresh this, we will validate this form. Okay. It is asking me to please select at least one checkbox. Okay. So here we have validated a checkbox. Now here we will add a drop down list. Okay, and we are going to check that at least one value is selected from that drop down list. So here in our HTML code, here I am going to write select city. We want to create a drop down list, so here I am going to use a select tag of the HTML. After that, here I am going to write the option, and here our first option will be select. Okay, now here we want to pass this value. Okay, so here I am going to add the value attribute. Now in our drop down, here I will add some cities. Suppose we are going to write Pune. Here we are going to write suppose Mumbai. Here suppose we are going to add Satara. Okay, so what we will do here, we are going to check at least user has selected this one city or not. Okay, so here first of all, for this select I will give the ID, and that is nothing but here suppose I am having city. So here we are going to write, we are going to access this ID. We are going to store this here. Okay. Here I am going to check that whether in this city we are going to have the value or not. Okay, so here we are going to store this value into this my city variable, and we are going to check that if this my city variable is equal to blank, it means that here user has not selected any option from the drop down list, and then we will give a message to the user. So here I am going to write the alert. Please select at least one city. And we are going to write return false. Okay, so here if I try to submit it, it is going to give me a message, please select at least one city. Okay, so this is how here we can do a form validation with the help of JavaScript. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Thank you.